So, James Howlett was born in 1832 in what would later be known as the Northwest Territories of Canada. In 1845, James lay sick in his bed, while Victor, who was currently visiting him, kept him company as James's father arrived to check in on him. A few moments later, Victor's father and John's groundskeeper, Thomas Logan, who was also having an affair with John Howlett's wife, entered the Howlett home, drunk, looking for James's mother, Elizabeth Howlett, and had a confrontation with John, which resulted in Thomas shooting John. James heard the gunfire, went to investigate, and found his father dead. It was under this grief-stricken incident that, in an act of vengeance, James's mutation began to manifest as he sprouted bone claws, slowly emerging from his fists and knuckles. In a wild rage, James roared in rage and fury and impaled Thomas using his claws. However, while impaling Thomas with his newly discovered bone claws, Thomas revealed that John wasn't James's real father. Much to James's horror, with his dying breath, Thomas revealed that he was James's true father by telling him he was also his son and Victor was his brother. After Thomas died, Elizabeth, horrified by James's mutation, cast her son out by calling him a freak as she questioned James as to what he was. Confused about what was happening to him, James fled and ran into the woods, with Victor following behind him. After running away, Victor, who was also a mutant, caught up and overtook James. Victor said that they were brothers and vowed to stick together and that they would look after each other no matter what, and this eventually led them to a life of rage and violence. As Victor was truly his own family and they shared a father, James started going by the name Logan. Over the next 28 years, as the two boys grew into men, Logan and Victor fought bravely together as soldiers for the United States in numerous wars. The wars the two brothers participated in throughout their years together included the American Civil War, World War I, World War II, and the Vietnam War, using their mutant powers. However, Victor grew increasingly violent and uncontrolled as time passed. Sometime in 1945, Logan transferred from the European front to the Pacific front, where he was captured by Japanese forces prior to August 9th and is sent to a POW camp near Nagasaki. During the Nagasaki bombing on August 9th, 1945, Logan saves the life of Ichiro Yashida, a young officer in the Imperial Japanese Army. After saving his life, Yashida thanks him and offers a Japanese samurai sword as a token of gratitude. Logan refuses, but says to hold on to it for him, promising to return for it in the future. So one of the most unique powers of Logan is his regeneration ability. Logan can heal and regenerate all physical and mental harm instantly. Any damaged area or lost anatomy will be completely restored with no lingering side effects in seconds, even forcing objects embedded out to heal properly. Logan can rapidly regenerate from virtually anything and everything, such as gunshots to the head or body, stabbings, bombs, fire explosions, poisonings, and even nuclear bombs, among many other things. Even if he clinically dies, he can quickly resurrect himself, making him near immortal. Despite being shot twice in the head and losing his memories, Logan was able to regenerate his brain cells and eventually regain his lost memories years later. However, he is still capable of feeling pain, and enough harm to his body or mind can render him unconscious. Many fans often ask why Wolverine's healing factor is so powerful, and what it is about Logan's biology that allows his body to regenerate, heal the damage from being shot, stabbed, burned, and blown up over his career as a superhero. Now I'm going to give references from comics as well, so don't get confused between what was told in the movies and what I'm saying. So it was revealed in the comics that Dracula founded his own nation of vampires and has begun using Wolverine's stolen blood to empower his followers to withstand daylight and enact his horrific agenda around the world. After this incident, Dr. Boggs starts researching and finds that Wolverine's blood bears a striking resemblance to that of vampires, with some notable differences. First, it doesn't deteriorate under ultraviolet light, but more importantly, it is more stable and less virulent. Vampire blood confers incredible strength and durability, and even a small amount can turn the recipient into a creature of the night, but it requires daily dialysis that creates their thirst for blood. In contrast, Wolverine's blood retains its special properties for a minimal amount of time when outside his body, but is far, far more resilient than a normal human's. Wolverine's hemoglobin count is 30 grams per deciliter, and his healing factor is so powerful because his veins are carrying a nuclear arsenal of protein. The doctor theorizes that Logan's stem cells are effectively the fountain of youth and wishes he could sample his bone marrow to find out more. The doctor explains that if a normal cell is a cardboard box, simple, flexible, but sturdy in its structure, Wolverine's is a brick house of many rooms and hallways with a fireplace roaring at its center. So the nature of Wolverine's powers as expressed by Dr. Boggs answers a few fan questions about Logan's healing factor. In past comics, Wolverine has survived having the skin and muscle stripped from his bones and even regenerated from a single drop of blood. And it's because his blood is so dramatically different from that of a human, and the vital importance of his bone marrow answers how he survived injuries that fans believed should have killed him. A particularly satisfying detail to see confirmed, since it validates the necessity of the adamantium covering Wolverine's bones and therefore protecting the fountain of youth that always brings him back. So Dr. Boggs' study puts the final nail in the coffin of the idea that Wolverine's healing factor is simply a faster version of normal human healing and justifies his blood as one of the rarest and most valuable substances in the Marvel Universe, with the catch that it loses its special properties soon after being taken. Logan may be an everyday hero, but Dr. Boggs' study makes a compelling case that his powers are also the biological flip side of vampirism. Logan's healing factor also gives him various benefits, other than just healing his injuries. For example, Wolverine's healing factor provides him with an extended lifespan by slowing the effects of the aging process. Wolverine was born sometime during the late 18th century. Although well over 200 years of age, Wolverine retains the health, appearance, and physical vitality of a man in the physical prime of his life. Wolverine's natural healing also affords him virtual immunity to poisons, viruses, diseases, and most drugs. It is extremely difficult for him to become intoxicated by alcohol. It can be accomplished with extraordinary amounts of alcohol, and even then, the entire cycle of intoxication and hangover can be completed in mere minutes. Wolverine's healing factor has cured him of the mystical curse of lycanthropy after he had been bitten and turned into a werewolf, and from vampirism, though it should be noted that the time it took to cure the werewolf curse was longer than the time it took to cure him of vampirism, because when he was infected with vampirism, he had also been infected with nanites to temporarily deactivate his healing factor. Another iconic weapon of Wolverine are his adamantium claws. So Wolverine's skeleton includes 6 retractable foot-long bone claws, 3 in each arm that are housed beneath the skin and muscle of his forearms. Wolverine could, at will, release these slightly curved claws through his skin between the knuckles on each hand. The bone claws are naturally sharp and tougher than normal human bone. Even before they were infused with adamantium, they could penetrate most flesh and many natural materials. After augmentation, his bones became indestructible, and his claws are capable of piercing any material. The adamantium bonding process, which affected his bones effectively, transformed them into a new alloy called adamantium beta, which, combined with his healing factor, prevents his adamantium skeleton from interfering with his bone marrow's production of blood cells. Wolverine can unsheath any number of his claws at once. Although he needs to keep his wrists straight at the moment, his claws pass from his forearms into his hands. When unsheathed, the claws are entirely within his forearms, allowing him to bend his wrists when they are extended. Along with the advantages, the adamantium within his body also has some serious disadvantages. For example, due to the weight of his adamantium-laced skeleton, it is difficult for Logan to swim as effectively as he could before. And one of the few ways to kill Wolverine is drowning him, because it cuts the brain's oxygen supply. He has admitted that being kept underwater can kill him, with the healing factor only prolonging the agony. Wolverine added that he is not fond of being on water, as the addition of nearly 100 pounds of adamantium to his body reduced his buoyancy. And due to the adamantium in his skeleton, Logan is vulnerable to being subdued or manipulated by enemies using magnetic powers. Wolverine also has a very unique weakness, or basically a weapon that can kill him, despite his healing factor and adamantium skeleton. So it is a sword called the Muramasa Blade. This is Wolverine's only specific vulnerability known to date. It was created by having his soul infused into the katana. The efficiency of his mutant healing factor is decreased dramatically if he sustains an injury from the Muramasa Blade. Wolverine has been wounded once with the blade, and though the injury was very minor, it did not heal completely for 2 days. Later, the blade was broken, and a piece of it was stolen by Daken and laced to the underside of his 2 wrists' bone claws. But Logan later removed the pieces of the Muramasa blade from Daken's arms and buried them with the rest of the blade in an unmarked grave. After Logan's death, Laura Kinney and Carol Danvers were tricked into revealing the location of the blade and its fragments to the Orphans of X, who melted it down and forged it into several bullets. So yeah, there are a lot of ways to kill Wolverine. We just have to be a little creative. So if you guys have seen Logan, then you might still have a question, and it's to know the real reason why Wolverine lost his healing factor. So with a healing factor like Logan's, one could expect to cheat death forever. No matter how many wounds or injuries he gets, Logan's healing factor was supposed to bring him back over and over again. In Logan, it did not. Why was it so? Basically, it is the adamantium in his bones, the very source of his abilities, that is killing Logan. Adamantium may be one of the strongest metals known to the Marvel comic book universe, but it is poisonous in nature. If a human body is exposed to adamantium, death is imminent in a few minutes. Logan had an entire skeleton made out of pure adamantium. The metal kept poisoning his body, and his healing factor kept fighting it, keeping the poison at bay. But that is not the only reason for his death. The actual reason is multi-layered and has several facets to it. Sure, Wolverine's healing factor failing and the adamantium poisoning finally coming to haunt his body were factors. They were important ones at that. There are other reasons involved too. Let us explain it to you more. So Logan had become a shadow of his former self. He was living the life of a recluse. He had lived a life of vigilantism and heroics. He had fought, battled, been scarred, and mutilated many times. Every single time, his healing factor brought him back. The reason Wolverine survived these attacks was because his regeneration abilities were at play. The amount of punishment Wolverine received at the hands of his enemies is way too much, even for a superhero who lives a life on the edge. The punishment his body received was also a reason for his healing factor's failure. In the field of biology, there is a term called the Hayflick limit. While it is used to signify the human process of aging, it is applicable for Logan too. The Hayflick limit states the number of times each cell in the human body can divide. After the cell has divided for a fixed number of times, it will reach its genetically programmed death called apoptosis. The human Hayflick limit is 40 to 60 times. For Wolverine, the limit probably ranges in millions or even billions. Now, notice the fact that even though it does sound a lot, it is still a finite number. If Wolverine had not gone through the intense amount of injury-rigged life, he would not have reached his Hayflick limit and would have probably lived forever. Had he remained a common man living a normal life and having an ordinary job, Wolverine would never have died. Mind you, when we see Logan in the movie, he is the only one shown to have some level of immunity to Professor X's psychic screams. The toll it takes on the body is immense. His healing factor allowed him to survive those bouts. We still do not know how many such episodes Professor X must have had. It could number in hundreds. Every time it was Wolverine that brought him back. The mental and physical stress of doing that every time would be immense, even for someone with a healing factor like Wolverine's. So in a world that still shuns mutants and considers them as outcasts, Wolverine had no one to turn to for medical advice and care. The adamantium poisoning was one among many factors that led to his eventual demise. It is the inhuman amount of punishment he let his body to be inflicted with that with time, brought down even his godlike healing factor to its knees. That is a big reason his healing factor failed and the adamantium poisoning kicked in. So yeah, I think that's all for this video, and if you guys enjoyed it, then make sure to get subscribed to the channel.